So this week, Natsume announced a brand new Harvest Moon game titled Harvest Moon One World coming to Nintendo Switch later this fall. Now, I saw a lot of people on my Twitter timeline really excited about this, and I can't blame them. It's a brand new Harvest Moon game, and with Animal Crossing coming out earlier this year, a lot of people are excited for these life sim farming type games. But unfortunately, I gotta rain on your parade a little bit. These are not the same games that you remember. Now, to be clear, I don't mean, oh, these are not as good as from when I was a kid. No, I'm saying these are literally not the same games that we are getting from Japan. They are different games. So today I'm going to share with you the confusing localization history of Harvest Moon and how it became Story of Seasons and what that means for all the different games. So let's get started. What's going on? My name is Taylor and welcome to the Gaming Shelf. If you enjoy JRPGs and want to stay up to date with the latest news, reviews, and other fun videos, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. So like I said in the opening, there is a brand new Harvest Moon game coming out this year for Nintendo Switch. Now, I don't want to damper your excitement, but I just want to make sure your expectations are properly set and that you get the game that you really want to play. So to properly explain all this, I'm going to have to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. It might not make sense at first, but stick with me, it'll be worth it in the end, I promise. So the very first Harvest Moon game was released in 1997 for the Super Nintendo by Natsume. Now in Japan, this series is known as Bokujo Monogatari, which roughly translates to Farm Story. The first game for Super Nintendo was developed by Amkis, which as far as I can find, they don't exist anymore, and every game since was developed by Victor Interactive Software. Now Victor Interactive Software was later acquired by Marvelous in 2003 and rebranded as Marvelous Interactive. Now you might be familiar with Xseed. They've published a number of Ys and Legend of Hero games. Now their parent company has been shuffled around quite a few times, but in 2011 they officially became a subsidiary and the North American publishing arm of Marvelous. Now fast forward to 2012's Harvest Moon 3D: A New Beginning. This is the last true Harvest Moon game as you know it. In 2015, Xseed published the next game in the quote-unquote Harvest Moon series, which has since been rebranded as Story of Seasons. Still a little bit confused? Let me show you using some of my amazing animation skills. So here's what would previously happen. Marvelous would make a game in Japan and call it Bokujo Monogatari. They would then hand that game off to Natsume to localize, who would in turn release it as Harvest Moon. However, since 2012's A New Beginning, now here's what happens. Marvelous has been handing that same game over to Xseed, which is now releasing under the name Story of Seasons. Now you might be asking yourself, well Taylor, there's been a ton of Harvest Moon games since then, what are those? Well, let me tell you, just because Natsume wasn't getting the same games from Japan, that didn't stop them from making their own Harvest Moon games. And let me tell you, they were bad. In 2014, they released Harvest Moon 3D: The Lost Valley, which sits at a Metacritic score of 46. Ouch! In 2016, they released Harvest Moon Skytree Village, which sits at a Metacritic score of 59. And in 2018, they released Harvest Moon Light of Hope, which sits at a Metacritic score of 62. So they've been slowly getting better, but they still have pretty low user scores. And last year, they even released a Match 3 game called Harvest Moon Mad Dash. Now, so few people cared about that game that right now it only has one review on Metacritic, sitting at a 50. Yikes. So with all this information in mind, now what do we do? Well, there is that new quote-unquote Harvest Moon game coming out, and it's supposed to be on a new engine and it's going to be totally reimagined, and who knows how good it's going to be. However, Xseed is releasing a remake to Friends of Mineral Town, widely considered to be the best game in the Harvest Moon series, under the new name Story of Seasons: Friends of Mineral Town. So if you loved Friends of Mineral Town or Back to Nature on the PlayStation 1, this is a remake to that same game. So if you're looking to pick up a Harvest Moon game, I would probably pass on the Natsume one and look to pick up the Friends of Mineral Town, which is releasing this summer for Nintendo Switch. Now I know that was all a little bit confusing, but hopefully that kind of clarifies it, and hopefully this will help you with your purchase decisions later this year. Now if you're a big fan of Back to Nature and Friends of Mineral Town like me, then make sure you check out my top 10 JRPG towns. Now, while that's not a true JRPG, Mineral Town was way too good not to include on that list. Now, recently I crossed the 7,000 subscriber mark, and I really appreciate everyone that's been supporting the channel lately. It really means a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.